Imagine a desert in, I don't know, Texas. Imagine it's been, let's say, 20 years since it's seen any change in weather from broiling sun rays. But then all of a sudden, during a press conference for the state of deserts worldwide, it is revealed that this Texan desert is going to get its first rainfall this May 23rd. And since that announcement, the winds have been a-hustling, the cacti are flossing, the tumbleweeds are learning the steps to Hold Down, Throw Down by Miley Cyrus. The anticipation is insane. And once May 23rd comes along, that rain will fall like nobody's business. The eagles will cry for the first time because there is now water falling down that makes tears a possibility after their 2-decade drought. Grass will grow in areas it hasn't touched, and the world is saved. The desert is no longer a desert. If it isn't clear, I am of course talking about the 1,000-year door and applying the excitement for this remake to climate change. Hey paper enthusiasts, I'm RidersDX and welcome to my channel, where today we're going to have a very interesting conversation about an important question when it comes to the 1,000-Year Door remake. Because as exciting as the prospect of this franchise fully returning to its roots with a literal remake of them, we can't help but wonder what is going to come after this. Will this desert continue to flourish with a brand new Paper Mario title that's a direct successor of the 1,000-Year Door, or will it not? Well, my friends, I'm here to give my proper argument of why I think we will not be getting a 1,000-Year Door 2 when all is said and done, and also what I think we will be getting based on things Nintendo and Intelligent Systems have said. Before we can really dive into that question, we first need to take a second look at the manuscript that is Paper Mario's history and see how we got to where we are in the first place. Paper Mario initially won the hearts of fans all the way back in 2000, with the original game on the N64 being an instant classic. This was only solidified by the release of the 1,000-Year Door in 2004, which only exemplified everything that 64 did and truly became one of the most beloved Mario games of all time. But I suppose this could be a hot take when I say that I don't think the 1,000-Year Door's legacy can be fully attributed to the game itself. What really helped flourish and grow the legacy of this game was the decades that followed after its release, which many have dubbed as the decline of the Paper Mario series. Every game that came out after the 1,000-Year Door strived to introduce a brand new concept into Paper Mario, which was received to varying degrees by longtime fans. Not to mention, along with gameplay changes, were overall shifts in tone, design, and narrative depth that many have spoken out against for years and years. I mean, it only takes a quick search of Paper Mario on the YouTube search bar to see the mounds of essays and dissertations over the direction of this franchise. It is my firm belief that things like the loss of turn-based combat in Super Paper Mario, the stripping of unique NPCs in Sticker Star, and the refusal to bring back partners in Color Splash were all contributing factors in raising the reputation of the 1,000-Year Door. It forced people to take a second look at this game and everything that it did right, and as a result, it is now regarded as a cult classic, and it's always brought up in conversations for this franchise. But would that have happened if we didn't have the games that came after? Who knows? But that's not the question I want to answer today. The question is, of course, why, despite the fact that Nintendo and Intelligent Systems are literally bringing back the game that embodies everything almost every fan of Paper Mario wants in a modern Paper Mario as a full-fledged remake, that I still firmly believe the next Paper Mario game will look almost nothing like it. And this is ultimately due to quotes from Intelligent Systems that directly outline some of their solid values as a video game developer that directly contradicts the idea of a 1,000-Year Door direct successor. Yes, I think most Paper Mario fans are all too familiar with the discourse this fanbase has with interviews for the series, as it was these exact interviews that revealed that Intelligent Systems weren't allowed to include unique characters like they had in the first 3 games. But it was also these interviews that reviewed just how Intelligent Systems and Nintendo approached developing every single one of these titles. Take this interview for instance, where they were talking about the Origami King. When continuing a game series, it's much easier to carry over the basics from an existing game system rather than building new systems for each installment, says Kensuke Tanabe, producer at Nintendo. But that's not how you create new experiences or unexpected surprises. As a game designer, I want to deliver new experiences and surprises to our fans, so I always challenge myself to create something new. To be sure, I will sometimes use the same system in a subsequent game to further develop that system until I feel it has reached its full potential, but my goal is to continue to tackle new challenges as much as possible. From this interview, I am very comfortable saying that since the 1,000-Year Door, Intelligent Systems hasn't ever made a direct successor to a previous Paper Mario game. Thousand Year Door to me is very much a direct successor from the original Paper Mario because it literally takes every single mechanic from that game and just expands upon it, all the way down to the use of star pieces. But beyond that, every single Paper Mario game afterwards aims to be its own distinct entry in the franchise. You could make the argument that Color Splash shares a lot of similarities to Sticker Star, but the incorporation of paint distinguishes it enough in my eyes. But also, Kensuke did mention that he would sometimes further develop a system in a second game until it's reached its full potential, which is definitely what happened here. Bottom line, Intelligent Systems very much values going forward and trying out new ideas in the games, and they have made that super clear for 2 decades. They had the same mindset going into Color Splash. Personally, I don't give much thought to how we're leaving old methods behind in any series, not just Paper Mario. I always prioritize thinking about how we can build new methods and new elements. Of course, there are some series where we have not made big changes to the systems, but sometimes that's because we feel as though these systems haven't been perfected yet, or the gameplay can be expanded even further. We felt both of those things in Color Splash. However, I do feel as though we reached the end of where Color Splash is headed, so if we get the chance to continue the series, I think we'll want to create a Paper Mario with a different system. So you might be saying, well, Riders, why in the world are they remaking the Thousand Year Door then? Well, I can only speculate at this point, but seeing as this is a remake, perhaps they thought that this would be a good solution to appease old fans while they work on whatever may be coming out next. So I don't see this game at all contradicting what they've previously said, because the literal definition of a remake is recreating what came before. But I mean, it's also clear that some of the principles from this time seem to not be as intense as prior, which leads us into what I believe is coming next for the Paper Mario franchise. So we've established that Thousand Year Door 2 is very unlikely given the overall motivations of Intelligent Systems, but on the bright side, that also means a Sticker Star 2 is also extremely unlikely, if not more. But if I can give a little hope to those that really would like to see a literal Thousand Year Door 2, what I will say is that whatever Nintendo and Intelligent Systems ends up doing next, it does seem like they are taking feedback very intensely around this time. In the past few weeks or so, a couple surveys have been brought to the forefront from Nintendo that are asking survey takers very specific questions about not just Paper Mario, but Mario RPGs as a whole. The questions touch on various elements of these games and what people's thoughts are about them, such as turn-based mechanics, partners, stories, everything you can possibly think of. It's clear that this remake is almost a test of some sorts, of what the reaction would be if we were to return to some of these old mechanics and stylings that we have been yapping about for who knows how long. But even before the literal announcement of the remake, it was already pretty clear to me that Intelligent Systems were trying to incorporate fan feedback, as the Origami King does take into account a lot of what people have been saying. It may not have gone all the way as many wanted, but the literal changes from Color Splash to Origami King cannot be understated, and did show a promising trajectory with starting for the series. So whatever that next Paper Mario game is going to be, I truly believe it won't be the direct successor to classic Paper Mario that everyone wants. But I do think there's potential for it to retain a lot of characteristics of the Thousand Year Door, and these surveys could be what they're using to determine what those retained details are. But at the end of the day, this is one of the key values of the developers here, and I just don't see that changing anytime soon. You can almost guarantee that what we will get will be new for the franchise, just like Super Paper Mario had the new 2D platformer elements, just like Sticker Star had the sticker mechanic, and just like Origami King had the puzzle wheels, the next entry will have something new. As much as we want to blame Nintendo for the series trajectory, I think some blame does need to go to Intelligent Systems for their insistence on constantly beating themselves, which by principle is not a bad thing. The philosophy of game creation that Mr. Tanabe learned from Mr. Miyamoto, and that in turn he's imparted to me, is to challenge yourself to create new gameplay. Games are entertainment, so I want the people who play our games to say, wow. My understanding is that if we want to give players these positive surprises, we can't do exactly the same thing that's been done before. The reality though is that sometimes they're going to hit it out of the park, and sometimes they won't. But I'll leave you with what I assume to be another hot take. Another Thousand Year Door would not actually be good for this franchise. And when I say that, I mean a game that's basically exactly like the Thousand Year Door, with very minimal new ideas and changes implemented. Let's go back to the desert getting rainfall metaphor I introduced at the beginning of the video. Obviously, rainfall for a desert in this context is being seen as a terrific change of pace for the inhabitants, especially since they've been deprived of soil nourishment for 20 years. What if it doesn't stop? What if it just continued to rain for decades and decades afterwards? Imagine your town completely engulfed in rain for the foreseeable future. The land would just be as uninhabitable as it would have been if it continued to be boiling sun rays for another 2 decades. The desert would be flooded to the point where you'd have to swim to get across anywhere. Most plants would not be able to grow due to the lack of sun. I mean, I'm sure you get it. Too much of what is perceived to be a good thing can eventually turn into a bad thing. Now granted, I honestly would not be mad at just one more Thousand Year Door like game. I mean, I think after 2 decades, updates, it's something we'd all greatly appreciate, but it will never hit as hard as the original did, no matter what you did to it that would improve the experience. The Thousand Year Door just hit this tender swelling spot in everyone's minds during a moment of time that solidified its legacy for life. The only way Paper Mario will ever get close to doing something like that again is for the series to continue moving on, try out new ideas, and refining previous mechanics. The series will not do this by repeating its past. In the age of the renaissance of remakes and remasters, it's hard not to forget what I just said, but it rings truer than the sands of time. Only a brand new Paper Mario game is going to have the potential to capture the minds and attention of those the way that the Thousand Year Door did. But that doesn't mean that it can't use some of the same ideas from that game to elevate itself. But it also doesn't mean it can be a retreading of what worked in the past. Personally, I actually think the Origami King is one of the best games in the series, which I know is a controversial take. But that game to me incorporated old and new ideas into a magnificent package that makes me really excited for what the team is going to cook up next. But let me know in the comments if you wouldn't mind an eternal rainfall in the sense of getting more games like the Thousand Year Door, or if you also want to see something new and exciting come from Intelligent Systems. Either way, Paper Mario is in what feels like a long-awaited renaissance, and I can't wait to see what comes next. Until then, this is Riders, riding out.